Alright, so today I'm going to explain how Stirling engines work. And to aid in this process, I have built a non-working model of a Stirling engine to show off the different components that go into a Stirling engine. Alright, so I'm going to start by looking at the different components of my Stirling engine. Now, all of these components can generally be put into one of three sections: the displacer piston, the power piston, and the crankshaft. I'm going to look at the displacer piston first. So, first part of this is we have this tin can here, which was for beans at one point, and this just creates a nice cylinder, which when I'm all done will be airtight, for the displacer piston itself to actually run in. Now as for the piston itself, it is this. It's these two pop cans, which I've cut apart and then glued and taped together, with a paper clip then running through it, which I have attached to this fishing line, which will then attach to the crankshaft. So that way, as the crankshaft turns, the piston will move up and down. And as the piston moves, it'll push air around inside the displacer piston. Now, as for the lid of the displacer piston, I have this tin can lid, which I've then hot glued to this pop can. And when I'm all done, I will caulk the lid and the can together, which will create an airtight seal, but I haven't done that yet because I want to show all the components. Alright, next we have the power piston, which is this PVC elbow joint, I guess, off to the side. Now I've caulked the PVC pipe to the tin can, both on the inside and the outside, which will create an airtight seal, because I do want the displacer piston to connect directly to the power piston. That is on purpose. But then, for the power piston, of course, I use just the PVC as the cylinder, but then at the top here, I use this gray balloon as the diaphragm. So, as air gets rushed up to the top, it will cause this diaphragm to expand, and as air gets pushed down to the bottom, it will cause this diaphragm to contract. And I've used the neck of the balloon to attach the diaphragm to the PVC. And this, the air being pushed around in this balloon, is actually what will power the entire thing. You might think it would be the big displacer piston with a tin can, but nope, it's actually just this right here. Now, attached to the balloon, I have this bolt and a couple washers, which I then have screwed onto this paper clip. And so then this will attach to the crankshaft. So as it goes up, it'll move the crankshaft, and as it goes down, it'll continue to move the crankshaft. Alright, so lastly, we have the crankshaft. And I guess with that, we have the this pop can here, which really just acts as a frame. So something for the crankshaft to spin on. It doesn't really do anything beyond that, it's really just a frame. But then on the crankshaft itself, which is made out of an old hanger, by the way, we have this small protrusion here, which is for the power piston, and then this larger protrusion in here, which is attached to the displacer piston. And then you'll notice I have these little bits of tape along the crankshaft, and that's just to prevent the crankshaft from sliding in any given direction too far. And then at the end here, I have the flywheel, which is made out of another tin can lid that is then hot glued to this plastic cap that went to something, I don't remember, and then in turn they're all hot glued to the crankshaft. But this is just so that as the power piston provides, power to the crankshaft, it'll give the flywheel some momentum, so that way when the power piston isn't providing power to the crankshaft, the momentum of the flywheel will keep the whole thing turning. That's the intent anyways. And then one last thing is you might notice that the protrusion for the displacer piston and the protrusion for the power piston are actually offset by 90 degrees. And that is on purpose, and will make more sense when I explain how a Stirling engine works. As for how a Stirling engine works, it is actually a type of heat engine. Like most heat engines, including steam engines and combustion engines, it works in 4 strokes. Before getting into any of the strokes, I want to mention the different types of Stirling engine. There are 3 main types: the alpha, beta, and gamma configurations. The alpha configuration consists of 2 power pistons connected together. The beta configuration uses one power piston and one displacer piston, both of which share a cylinder. Lastly, the gamma configuration also has one power piston and one displacer piston, but they are in separate, yet connected, cylinders. My engine utilizes a gamma configuration. For any Stirling engine to work, the pistons have to be out of phase by 90 degrees. This means that when one piston is all the way down, the other piston is at its halfway point. Furthermore, all Stirling engines require a heat differential. For the alpha configuration, this differential is between the power pistons, i.e. one is cold, the other is hot. For the beta configuration, one end of the cylinder, usually the top, is cold, while the other end, often the bottom, is hot. The gamma configuration has a heat differential equivalent to the beta configuration, bottom is hot, top is cold, across the displacer piston. There is not a heat differential across the power piston, however. A big advantage of Stirling engines in general is that they are very efficient. A candle should be powerful enough to create a proper heat differential. I'm going to use a gamma configuration as an example in analyzing each of the 4 strokes, because that is the type of engine that I have. However, despite the differences between each configuration, the strokes are essentially the same. Now, there is no defined first stroke, so I'm just going to start when the displacer has just moved to the top, when it's colder, while the power piston is at its midway point. At this state, the pressure is normal, but the displacer piston has moved all the air toward the bottom, near the heat source. This heats up the air, increasing the pressure. Here, we immediately move to our second stroke, which is known officially as the power stroke. At this point, the heated air pushes against the power piston, forcing it upwards, while the displacer is correspondingly moved down to its halfway point. Now we move to stroke 3, where the added momentum moves the power piston back to the midway point and carries the displacer down to the bottom. This forces the air up to the top, where it can cool. Finally, we get to our last stroke, where the cooled air returns the pressure to normal. This allows less energy to be used as the momentum of the flywheel brings the displacer up to the midway point and forces the piston down to its lowest point. Still relying on the momentum of the flywheel, the power piston returns to its midway point while the displacer is brought to the top, forcing the air to the bottom and allowing the cycle to continue. The alpha and beta configurations work in very similar manners, where air is moved around, heated, pushes on the power piston, moved back, and cooled. Alright, so here we are back to my Stirling engine. I've now caulked it all together, so as you can see here I've got the caulking around to attach the lid to the displacer cylinder. There are a couple points I had to add hot glue here, because it's very important that you have an airtight seal. It doesn't work without an airtight seal. And then over here, for the power piston, I've wrapped the paperclip around the crankshaft. So now when I rotate it, the displacer piston goes up and down, as you can see in here. And then the power piston, if my fingers aren't in the way too much, also goes up and down, as you can see on that end. However, if I were to just give it a quick spin, you see it doesn't really keep going. It goes for a little bit and then stops pretty quickly. Alright, so that's how a Stirling engine works. Hope you understood it, and that the components provided any necessary clarification. Now, I'm going to let you in on a bit of a secret. My non-working model was supposed to work. The original intention was, after showing the components and explaining how it worked, I would then show my Stirling engine running under candle power, just to give you an idea of what a Stirling engine looks like when it's working. However, due to some issues, which I'm guessing had to do with an overly heavy and improperly sized displacer, as well as general imprecision errors in the building, especially having to do with a crankshaft, it doesn't work. And believe me, I've tried to get it to work. Now, you can't actually build a working Stirling engine out of scrap, like I tried to do, just YouTube how to build a Stirling engine. But, nevertheless, hope you enjoyed it, you learned something, and see ya.